Hello, my name is Zachary with Old Man Gaming. Welcome to another Snap Judgment review. What is a Snap Judgment review if you've never listened before? Well, I think game reviewers nowadays get a little caught up in 100%ing or near completing a game, so I'm going to give you an idea whether you're going to enjoy it right off the bat or not. So, I get about 5 to 10 hours with the game. That, coupled with the fact that I think games are one of the most subjective forms of art, I'm not going to give you a score on this review. I'm going to give you an overview of what the game is, then I'm going to tell you the pros and the cons of the game that I've noticed so far, and then I'm going to tell you whether or not I personally will be sticking with the game outside the purposes of this review. So, what am I talking about today? I'm talking about Moonlighter 2. Moonlighter 2. So, everybody who's been on the channel for a while, Moonlighter 1 loved that game, absolutely worshipped the ground that game walked on, and Moonlighter 2 by 11-Bit Studios has just recently launched into early access. It's a relatively cheap price. I think it's $26 with its early onboarding whatever price. And yeah, I'm here to tell you whether or not it is a good one. But before that, we got to go into the overview. So, the idea behind this game, much like the first one, is that you are doing an interesting game loop, which is by night you go into dungeons, although in this it's more like realms that you go to fight through and pillage, to collect relics that you then return to sell in a shop that you own. You change prices, all sorts of stuff. It's very similar to Dave the Diver, actually, in my opinion, ripped off the first Moonlighter. It is a very satisfying loop. And this game takes what the previous game did and just builds on it. They give it more of a 2.5 feel to it. Last one was a top-down pixel game that kind of played a lot like an old-school Zelda game. Now I would say that is gone. Now you're kind of like almost diagonally looking at the course. I would not say it plays like a Zelda anymore. They also did a couple of other things. They changed some. They added a lot of backpack mechanics to the relics that you pull. The relics that you grab don't just sit in your inventory and take up space. Instead, some of them can burn ones next to them or armor ones next to them. Others can create spark or increase their rarity. One of the things they changed in this game too was there's a rarity score to the actual thing, and that rarity score increases the price just right off the bat. And instead of making you try and figure it out, when you go to price it in your store, so like if you found a good price for 30 coins or whatever, it'll automatically mark it up for the rarity, and people will be happy with that, which I thought was really cool aspect of that. But we're getting ahead of ourselves to the store thing. So the idea behind it is this extra mechanic you're trying to kind of figure out how to pack, and in addition to actually collecting all the relics. And it's not necessarily about the amount of things you get so much as what you get and what you bring back. In addition to that, there is a story. Much like the first one, you're going into this, but the reason behind it is there is some character that shows up named Moloch, who basically takes over your original village of Rhinoa, and you end up, all of the Rhinoans end up kind of adrift and end up at this other city of Tresna. And then they're trying to kind of make ends meet as refugees, which is an interesting concept. I feel like there is a lot more story here. There is a lot more talking and a lot more learning of the world building. Also, the first one felt very rooted in fantasy with sci-fi kind of towards the end, whereas this one is much more like fantasy sci-fi, as you start with like this weird blob gun that you can fire. This very enigmatic thing called the Endless Vault shows up, and basically you get stuff out of it as you earn money in your shop. You don't have to pay the Endless Vault. It just, once you've earned enough money in the shop, it triggers another cutscene and another bonus of some sort. There are currently 4 weapons in the game. You start with a broom, and then you slowly unlock weapons with the blacksmith. Same with the armors. And then there are, of course, other various unlocks that slowly become available to you the more runs and the more progress you make. On the store end, they've also added some... I'm sorry, got ahead of myself. On the combat end, they also add these roguelite elements. Instead of going through a procedurally generated dungeon, this one you're going through a procedurally generated kind of like land. Well, there was one that was a dungeon, but overall, it looks a lot more like a roguelite. You can actually see all the rooms that have procedurally generated, what you get from them, and you can take the course that you want to take to those things. Don't know if I love this. I liked the fact that Moonlighter was kind of just this dungeon that you didn't know what you were going to get from each area. And like you had to weigh kind of going into that next room and going through it against, you know, trying to find your way to the boss or just getting out. With this one, you can see exactly what you're going to get. You can see whether it's going to be a rune that then gives you bonuses, much like a roguelite does. You can also see like the kind of level, like you can see whether it's going to be relics or whether it's going to be an elite bad guy, whether it's going to be a mini boss, whether it's going to be the boss, other little question marks and stuff on it. So it looks a lot more like Hades this time around than a procedurally generated Zelda. Then we kind of, now we can switch over to the shop mechanics, which they've also added some roguelike stuff here. As you earn money, you can grab perks for the remainder of the day, which increase tips. They increase common weapon sold prices, stuff like that. The usual stuff is here. You can actually you set your prices, and then whatever you set the price, they don't tell you what the price of anything is at the beginning. You set the price, and then there are 4 levels that a character or a customer will react to it. They'll either react cheap, good price, irritated by the price, or too high, won't buy. And then it records that in your journal so that you can try and find the perfect price for the equipment, the relics, which is like it was in the first one. There's nothing new there, except like I said, it's not necessarily about how much stuff you bring back, but the level of rarity, because that rarity bonus automatically adds in. So if you find a good price of like 30 gold coins and the rarity is like 25, it'll automatically add 25 rarity worth to the 30 price when you set it at 30, so you don't have to do the math on your own. Then there is a whole wealth of customization options that weren't here for the shop. The shop was really not customizable in any way, if I recall correctly, in the first one. Now you can just customize all sorts of stuff. You will get these customization options by either purchasing them from a specific store or by using vouchers that you find in the dungeon to get random items for your shop. I found this incredibly fun and interesting as a nice addition among a lot of things that I don't actually love. But that's the game. So let's get into the pros and the cons of this one. I always like to start positive, so let's do the pros. The pros, first, I want to say that I like how they have done the shop customization. As I already mentioned, I really enjoyed actually customizing the shop. It does look like there is a way to get the shop bigger at some point, as a lot of the items that you place actually have effects on what you're selling and how you're selling it. So you can kind of decorate your shop if you're selling for a specific realm that day. Speaking even more on that, my next perk is special customers and the customer kind of and the codex type of area. I don't remember this being in the first one at all. Might have been, but basically every day on the calendar, it might have nothing, but some days have rarity appreciation day. So any item that you get that you sell of rare whatever quality will be extreme. People will buy it at higher prices. Or Kalina appreciation day. So the realm of Kalina, if any Kalinan artifacts you bring back, those will get you more price and be more popular. In addition to that, the characters that you talk to around town, the actual named characters, their heads will show up on the codex, and that means they're shopping that day for an item, which means that if you have an item that they want, they might give you 2 times the coins. They might give you a special item in appreciation for finding it, so you can actually kind of bond with these characters a little bit. I really enjoyed that. I think that is really cool. The shop stuff that they did, I think, was a lot of really good quality improvements, and I really enjoy them. Honestly, the shop stuff I don't have any problems with. Then we move to the traps on encounters. When you're taking on enemies in the field, the traps work on them too, which I thought was really nice. There's a lot of games out there, especially in the roguelite, where the traps only affect everything negative only affects you. I don't like that. I like it when the traps or the negative influences also inflict the bad guys. Like, I like that. Like, I want it to be realistic. One thing I did notice is that ranged attacks from enemies don't affect other enemies. That's still irritating. I really wish that was fixed, especially with one of my cons, which we'll go into in a little bit. But like I said, I think anything damaging on a field should affect everybody, with the exception of multiplayer friendly fire, which I hate. I think anything on a battlefield that's going to blow up should affect everybody equally, and I've always thought that. Okay, so let's get into the cons, because I have a couple of big ones. So I'm going to start with my biggest one, and it is this kind of like roguelike rework of the questing encounters. I don't like them. In Moonlighter, you could get a map, and that could kind of show you where like the mini boss is, maybe the boss is, but like overall, it was a procedurally generated dungeon. You had to decide whether you should be going through that area or not. In addition to that, you could go back to areas that you were previously in. You could run back into them to get stuff if you lost equipment or you needed a potion or something. It made the exploration of that individual dungeon kind of the star of the show for me. And I like that, because then when you go out and you go back in, it's a new dungeon. You never know what you're going to get, and I really enjoyed that aspect of the dungeon part. With this, you can't go backwards. Once you go forward in a room, you're in a new room, period, just like a roguelite. You have all these weird perks and stuff that you have to try and like manage, which I don't remember those being in the first one. They might have been there, but like I know there were places where you could find perks and stuff, and that would benefit you, but the weird choice of where to go. And I also don't necessarily like seeing everything in front of me. Like, this feels like Hades. It feels like one of the players of the first one played Hades and was like, Hades is really fun, let's make the combat like Hades. I don't like that. I liked the original Moonlighter. I liked the feel. I liked the top-down Zelda feel. I liked the procedurally generated dungeons that way in room form. I liked everything about that aspect of Moonlighter. I wish that had stuck around instead of what we've gotten here. So that's my biggest problem, and it is hindering me the most with repeated go-backs to it. I'm not going to say I'm done with it, but I really don't like that aspect of it. Moving on, my next 2 big ones. I'm going to stick with the combat because I just talked about it. There's too many ranged enemies, and the range doesn't hurt anybody, and it is insanely frustrating. It feels like every room I go into is a fish trap. And they're all waiting for me and prepared. It's not like the original one where you'd go in and you'd get a random number of enemies and maybe some traps that you had to deal with. This one, it feels like every room I go into, I'm going into a center area with raised areas on the outside. The center area has a bunch of close combat people I have to fight, while there's a bunch of people on the raised areas that shoot at me. It's the most frustrating setup that there is in gaming, and it happens in literally every room you go into. I have not made it to a major boss yet, but the mini bosses, same thing. It is extremely frustrating. I don't know how, the range that and the ranged shots don't affect the bad guys, so you just get swarmed. And yes, I know you have a ranged gun, but it's incredibly finicky and it's hard to aim, in my opinion. And it's really hard to shoot at the guys up at the top while you're fighting the guys on the ground. I don't know. I feel like every room being like trappy like this is frustrating to me, and it's just not a design that I enjoy. And then finally, you can't really change the camera controls. It always has this kind of stilted shot. It's not that you can't necessarily see everything, but there's definitely moments that, especially in the city, that I'd like to be able to like move the camera around myself so that I could see kind of different parts of it, and you can't. There's a lot of things like weirdly blocked from view on that. So whether or not I'm gonna stick with this, look, I purchased it. I'm gonna give it another try. I'm gonna keep going on it, and I'm gonna play it. I know this has sounded kind of negative, and in a way, it kind of is. I don't love doing negative reviews, but there's something about this game. Like, I'm so excited to play this. And there's something about this game where it loses the feel from the first one, and I don't like that because I loved the first one so much. I wish the first one had just been added to over the course of the years. But this one doesn't. I don't feel like this feels like a new game, and I don't really like that. So I'm gonna stick with it. I'm gonna give it another chance. I don't want to be super negative. I just wish they had done something different with the actual like dungeon part of the game. Other than that, did I get it right? Did I get it wrong? I know this was kind of a negative review, and I don't love doing those, so I'm sure I'll get some hate. But please, like I said, it's just my opinion. If you like it, I'm happy for you. I'm really happy for you, and I'm happy for any independent studio that makes money nowadays. So you can tell me in the comments below. You can also reach us on Discord. You can also reach us on Discord. You can influence anything we say and do from there. As long as you guys keep watching, listening, I'll keep making them.